Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. My name is Paul Martin. I'm the CEO of TEN Capital. And before we kick into our major presentation, I wanted to introduce Sean Dwyer of Baylor University. He's a PhD candidate doing some research on entrepreneurship. Sean, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the research you're doing and what you'd like for the audience to help you with?
Absolutely. I'll share my screen so you all can see it. I'd like to invite you all to join a research study on purpose. My name is Sean Dwyer. I'm a former business owner and CPA. I'm getting my PhD in business at Baylor University, and I'm conducting interviews with entrepreneurs. I'll be posting a link in the chat shortly and would love to provide you with insights regarding my study and would love the chance to learn from you. Thank you guys so much.
And great, if they type in that QR code or take a picture of it, they can actually get what exactly?
Oh, yes, you'll be brought to a link where you'll be able to provide your name, your email, and your phone number, and I'll be getting in touch with you.
That's great. Well, I appreciate that, Sean. Thanks for joining us up here. And next up, we have Dan Conley of the New Jersey Angels. Dan, are you up here yet?
I think I am. I'm up in the corner. I can see Sean and you, and I got my screen share on for the venture evaluation.
That's great. Before you kick off, Dan, can you introduce yourself and your group to the audience, and then kick into your presentation on how to do venture evaluations?
Well, it is a lot of fun when it works well, and it's long hill climbing process to have a venture that someone invents, kitchen table, lab, takes it out, becomes an entrepreneur, becomes a CEO, becomes a fundable CEO. So this is the coursework in our Entrepreneurship University program. It's been in existence for 34 years. And I've been running the show for all that time. As a event, not a byproduct really, the purpose is my own family office where I'm an active angel investor with the Angels in Life Science network. And that's njangels.net for convenience. That's how we get started. But now we're investing all over the country, and we don't have to do all that in-person due diligence like the old ways. But again, so MedTech, our two of our investments in 2022 got acquired, publicly traded companies. Wow. So stuff is happening. And we've been making about one investment a quarter. And the reason why we believe our tried and true method of the venture evaluation works is because it's been deployed for over 25 years. And so there's a self-scoring process. We encourage the entrepreneurs to say, okay, how good do I really think I am? My family thinks I'm a 10. My girlfriend, she thinks I'm an 11. And so we get this false sense of what do the investors think? What are they always asking? Well, I'm here to give you some tips on their hearing pitches. They're catching pitches all the time. And so what they're looking for is patterns, and they're looking for a pathway to fundability. In other words, is it obvious that there's a due diligence process that's already been done, and that this company doesn't need a lot of heavy lifting to prove what it is they're claiming to do? So let me just preface everything to say that most everything you hear from me, you already know. I'm just reminding you of it and putting it into my little Rubicon here with the 22 criteria. The real genesis of this is Fred Best, a venture capitalist extraordinaire. He's passed, but present with these 12 show me keys of raising early stage capital. So anytime you're going to use it, please make a proper attribution. And then you'll see down below here, I'll scroll, and where's the scroll? And then the 10 and then, that's our group. And I'm not sure. Hall, can you see all the way down to my signature block?
Yes, we can. Okay,
good. All right, so okay. We're really going to focus on these social meetings, and they're after you've sensed them, they become almost intuitive. So the reason why these exist is that it's impossible to truly technically evaluate a venture. It's a series of consensual opinions. Yikes. And so we like to believe that there's science in valuation of assets that have yet to generate revenue or reduce expenses, which is what assets job is. And then the management team, again, nebulous, vague, we don't know. So the idea is that if the entrepreneur is going to be able to codify all this comprehensive, yet very concise, a series of, if it's a 10-minute pitch, right, that's 600 seconds. So there's 100 6-second bullets, if you think about it in the incremental way. So part of the whole process is for us to help the entrepreneur and the entrepreneurial team, not just Captain Kirk, but we want Spock and Bones and the Uhura weighing in as this advisory group with the captain of the Enterprise. So the point is that can you show an audience enough proof that this exists, that you, the CEO, are someone who can sell. So you're about to sell us on paying you for your securities. Is that fair? Because the securities are worth this today and going to be worth OMG over the mountain huge tomorrow. So everyone's willing to suspend their disbelief and can get past the fault finding of the facts that don't exist yet, and the facts that you probably have a lot of facts, right? You bet in the family fortune on this venture. So it's not so much you're going to, so you have to get people's attention. So you've all heard this before on Shark Tank. Somebody says, I love you, I love the product, but it looks like it's going to take too much of my time, so I'm going to pass. So one of the goals of an early stage entrepreneurial pitch is to show how wonderfully elegant the due diligence process is going to go, so that they'll come into an agreement with you about the outlook and the forecast and the likelihood of adoption and the margins, et cetera. And they need to know simply that you've thought all this through. You don't need to show them that you've thought all this through. You can just sort of outline a fairly detailed table of contents that says, we've organized this company really well down to some of the deep details that you're going to want to see. Oh, by the way, are there any deep details you want to see now? They'll test you. They're when incoming to a family office like mine, where I'm the chief deal screener, and then I have a few collectives of co-investors that I can rely on to give me quality feedback. So we might enter into a due diligence. So there's been a couple, 3 companies in 2023 undergoing a due diligence by me and my team that has resulted in, 7 figures of revenue, 7 figures of equity investment in 2 of those companies, and almost the 3rd. So it's a process. You got to go through it. The degree to which you have gone through it, any sort of angel group. So, okay, so I'm going to back up a step. So if you need tools to be able to develop these, some team skin in the game, how do you do that? That's complicated. You're selling, you're bartering for their services and products or whatever, but you're bartering securities. So you have to know before you go. And so there's like 100 things on a checklist that have been codified by David Rose, who wrote 2 wonderful books, and you can find them both on gus.com. And one is the Angel Investor Checklist. That's what angels absolutely need to have, this checklist presented to them by entrepreneurs. And the second book, as you can imagine, is almost like flipping around the binoculars, and the entrepreneurs get an instruction set about what that angel or that venture or that corporate strategic whatever is going to want to see in terms of prove it to me, prove it to me, prove it to me. So the 2 questions that I keep going off in an angel's head are, every statement an entrepreneur makes, it's going to be, well, how does he know? And can he prove it? And most of the technical stuff in the science and the labs and the mice data we're going to pretty much suspend our disbelief and agree that you've been working your assets off, sir, and you have some pretty skippy good assets here, which to back and move into the discovery of a medicine or a device or combination or something. So that's what we do all day long here is we help process companies to the next level and communicate with our vast network of accredited individuals who say no to almost everything. And that's just the sort of the healthy way by which angels roll is they want to see somebody else in it and who's done a very thorough good job on the due diligence. And of course, that angel, that lead angel, if you will, hard to find those two, is going to probably want to work for the company and support the CEO in developing not just the materials that then are going to pass muster, but the whole logical sequence of sharing. So a couple of things that pop out in getting higher scores on any one of these 12 show me keys is what we call the approach letter, the cover letter. If you're sending a happygram to a complete stranger to talk about money that they might invest behind you. So, of course, as everyone knows about, first impressions, etc., the trick is to make that cover letter so motivating and so transparent as to what is in the deck that has been attached and what is going to want them to trigger, let me go check on that deck. So he's going to have to want to trust you. And there's a certain level of transparency that does that, very professional looking email. And then even if you put on the bottom of your email, this email has been, virus tested, those are healthy things. There's a suspicion. I mean, that's why. Okay, so I'll stop with that. Anyways, there's a lot of ways to get the bridge of the trust. And then really, if you're talking about money this 100 days, next 1,000 days, 10,000 days, maybe. So it's a big scope of time. They deserve to know a little bit about the last 1,000 days or 10,000 days, the chronology of capital. This conveys a lot of things based on the story you can tell. In other words, the truth about how you got started, about his family and friends, maybe some grants, IP. Wow, you got to do that. Protect. So that demonstrates, angels, that you're looking out for their interests, and that's probably the one theme that carries all others. So this is the 12 show me keys here. If you've seen them, you're going to get a list of these things. And now we go to the deadly sins. And the good news is that we've found this to be true over 34 years and thousands of entrepreneurs. We've found these things to be true. And they change. The culture changes, West Coast, East Coast, a lot of change. The good news is that if there's an actual sin being committed, and the entrepreneur becomes aware of that, they can fix it pretty easily. So what this also declares is the practice, polish. A lot of entrepreneurs saying, we got to raise $3 million for 2024. We're going to run out of cash by Christmas. So the first question the CEO ought to be asking is, okay, what are all of our fundraising tools in the fundraising toolkit? We need to get them sharper and tighter and deploy them. So there's research, there's marketing, and there's communications. Now, you can't leave home without a closing document. So that used to be, in the old days, a private placement memorandum, and before that it was a napkin. But the point I want to make is that you have to have a closing document if you're expecting to sell something to somebody who's qualified to buy it. You with me? And so many entrepreneurs are out there saying, well, we need so much money that we're going to wait for a lead investor that loves us. And I'm thinking, wow, that's going to be a long wait. So you need to declare, and so here's a hint, right? National Venture Capital Association has on their website, nvca.com, a preferred A term sheet. It's a Word doc template. you can fill in and make your own. It gives your team a starting point. It gives your team an agreement, because it turns out, surprise, that when the money shows up, people misremember the dealio about stock percentages or ownership percentages or control or something like that. So that's why you want to get in front of some accredited folks who can provide some feedback. You can ask your own tough questions, and then we'll answer it as well. We do it first Monday of every month. Like I said, I've been running this since 1991, and
Dan, we're at the end of our time. Can we go and wrap up?
That's what I was doing. I was saying, and feel invited. The information is here.
Great, thanks. Appreciate that, Dan. How best for people to get back in touch with you?
There's an email there, OnCallCFO@gmail. I put in my box right in front of you, Dan Conley at njangels.net. So look, it's important to note, I'm not Life Science Angels. That's a group out in California. I'm Angels and Life Science Investors. We're almost the exact same, except they're really big and I'm really small.
Very good. Well, appreciate that, Dan. For those in the audience, we'll send this copy of the details to you with the recording afterwards, so you'll have this information later, and we're glad to introduce you to Dan for those who have interest there. For those in the audience, those who are presenting today will be in a breakout session at the end of the formal pitches, so you'll get a chance to talk to these guys individually as we go forward with the day. Dan, thank you for joining us today. Great presentation, and appreciate what you do for the community as well.
Oh, good. I'm going to pop into each one of the entrepreneurs' rooms to say hi and hear the 1 minute pitch. I'm going to be hearing the 1 minute pitch.
That's
okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Good idea. Thanks so much, Dan. And so our next presenter is going to be Art Clapp of Nuvothera. Art, if you could come on up the stage here, we'll have to check you out. There you go, Art. Go ahead and share your screen. And each presenter gets 15 minutes to present and ask questions as well.
Okay. All right, so my name is Art Clapp. I'm the CEO of Nuvothera, and we make over-the-counter products to treat skin diseases. I'm going to click forward here. I'm going to move my slide. Okay, there you go. Our first product that we launched for the treatment of psoriasis, if you're not familiar with it, is characterized by these silvery plaques. It's not a very pretty condition, so it's embarrassing skin disease, and it's really, really difficult to control. It's not very nice, so people want to do something about it. In a recent survey in the American Academy of Dermatology, basically the problem shows that the majority of psoriasis patients are still looking for effective treatments and safer treatments. The survey basically showed that 85% of the patients are not getting the results that they wanted, and they're really worried about the side effects, that they're being too dangerous. So a lot of people don't take their medicine. So we knew there was a better way. So we developed a product called Prosoria. It's an over-the-counter psoriasis treatment system. It's a two-part system that has prescription results, but without the side effects. And so, as we mentioned, there's some issues with some of the prescription products, how people perceive them, but the over-the-counter products also lack appeal. And a lot of the products that are on the market today, they're pretty old, they're smelly, they're greasy, got to apply them 3 or 4 times a day. And we developed a modern approach, the 2-step system. It's very effective, so you only have to apply it once a day. We use salicylic acid instead of coal tar. That's smelly. We add very effective anti-inflammatory botanicals that greatly boost the efficacy. It works pretty fast, and it feels great on the skin. So here's just taking a look at the kind of results that we get. So you get really prescription-like results, but without a prescription. Here's just another patient looking at them. These are the kind of results you see with prescription drugs, not with over-the-counter products. And here's a recent study that was published. It just shows that our product produces similar effectiveness compared to other topical prescription drugs. And here's our management team. We all work together at Galderma. the largest dermatology pharmaceutical company. As a group, we launched some of the largest blockbusters in dermatology. We all retired, and we started Nuvathera, our company. And myself, I've launched some of the largest products. Some you may know, Cetaphil, which is now a $1 billion product, and some others. The psoriasis market is huge. It's very attractive, about $13 billion market, 5% growth rate over the next several years. A 5-year growth rate with 11% growth. We got 9 million people that suffer from psoriasis in the US, about 125 million worldwide. We focus on the top 80% of the sufferers with the condition. And our go-to-market strategy has been to first launch online, which we have, doubling sales every year. And we've recently, with the goal of putting our products into the retail distribution with 20, 30,000 stores, leveraging that so we could scale greatly. So that's where we are right now. We just got into Walgreens and CVS in the spring. Yep, in the spring we're going to be in Rite Aid in the Northeast, and in the first 2 months at Walgreens, we became the #1 psoriasis topical product. Okay, here's our sales, doubling sales yearly on the internet, and now launching into the retail store, quadrupling stores and growing quickly. As I mentioned, we were in Walgreens and CVS. We have a great product pipeline that we developed for all the top largest dermatology conditions, and we're experiencing rapid growth and continuing in the future. Here's some of the future products that we will be launching, 1 to 2 every year. Next year we'll launch the first and only anti-inflammatory moisturizer. I launched Cetaphil, so this will be Cetaphil plus the anti-inflammatory effects that are causing the dry skin. And then long year product for eczema and warts, followed by acne treatments, rosacea. Toenail fungus, a huge market. 1 out of 5 people have toenail fungus. So, and we're in discussions right now with some Asian companies and Indian companies, and also in Europe, to expand our distribution internationally. And that's my background also. So just give you an image of the kind of drugs that we can develop with my background. I'm a scientist and develop a lot of the products in dermatology. And you can see the great results. We bring smiles to the faces of people that use our products. You can see, the before and after photo. So, the key is once you get into the stores, you want to make sure that you pull it out, right? And so my background's in that area, launched a lot of really big blockbusters in dermatology, over-the-counter products, and prescription drugs. And these are the kinds of things that we do. And this is why in the first 2 months, we became the top selling psoriasis product at Walgreens. And it's just a full 360-degree program, promoting to the consumer. One of the things that we do that the other over-the-counter product companies do is that they don't promote to the professionals. So we do, and that's one of the reasons we've made Cetaphil a $1 billion over-the-counter product, moisturizer. And so through detailing and couponing and all the rest, and we have a program too to the pharmacists. In terms of our funding timeline, we are raising $1 million, the convertible note, very attractive terms, 5% interest. We are using a 35% discount on this round with a $10 million cap. And here's our key advisors, our medical, scientific, legal, regulatory, and our business people. Our medical scientific team helped us develop. These are all dermatologists. In terms of intellectual property, we have 2 patents, one that we was granted in 2020, and another one that was granted this year. Here's the traditional suspects in terms of exiting. We can exit to purchase by dermatology pharmaceutical companies or the typical consumer over-the-counter companies. And this is my last slide. We aim to exit in 3 to 5 years. And here's the comparables. exit with revenues of 3 to 4 times the revenues in terms of our selling price. So that wraps it up. And thank you for paying attention and listening.
Great. Thanks, Art. Great presentation. In the audience, if you have a question, drop it in the box and we'll ask it here live. If you can kick off, Dan, with your first question, we may have others.
Well, Arthur, you covered everything in the pitch. It was a really good pitch. I'm a little jaded in this space. I invested behind a company, Neurogen, and we have this fabulous diabetic on the feet, the tingling, and our product turned off the pain, and it was great. And you know who we had deals with? This is like maybe valuable to you. Rite Aid, CVS, and Walgreens, and it became the highest selling SKU in the stores for all 3 chains. You know what they did? They colluded, and they basically flipped the margin on us, and we had just opened a 3rd shift in Halifax. So I just want to tell you a battlefield lesson about those agreements and so there you go. That's part of the model. The other thing, so could you go back over? I mean, so this slide right here at the end, you need to give angels dollars and dates. This is angel food. Dollars and dates.
Yeah. So I think
really good slide. No, go back earlier. Let me just scan back to a couple. You had some. You have really good stuff here.
Which one are you looking for?
There you go. Boom.
This
Okay.
one?
The
No,
timeline.
the money.
Next one. No.
Yeah.
Forward.
So
This one?
you have like a funding slide with a big purple arrow.
Funding.
across the
Okay.
middle.
Big arrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's all about the money. Oh, and that competitive landscape slide is really good. So wow, you went right by it.
Yeah, I went by it.
So
Wait a minute. Let me.
One more.
There we
2
go.
more.
Was that it?
Come
I'm
back.
pushing on this thing and it's delayed.
So
There
there it is. Boom. So your
Okay.
final slide, you should leave
Yeah.
this on the final slide so that
Okay.
we can drink that in.
Yeah.
So here's my reaction. He's showing me just enough for me to get into trouble. He's not showing me enough about how to get out of trouble. Now, you have all this constellation of logos and you have some big comps at the end, but I think that there's something that looks very similar to this slide that follows it, which is 2024, 5, 6, 7. And then on that next slide, you show us, oh, you're already talking to these folks and blah, blah, blah. In other words, you're already setting up the exit, even if you might end up licensing off 1 or 2 of the product. I don't know how it's all going to be divided up, but is there some underlying mechanism of action and IP that all those potential acquirers really want, and they can only get it by buying it from you? They can't circumvent you.
There's a lot of questions you had there, so I'm going to try to talk about. I'll talk about the last one. So in terms of IP, so we have there's a lot of things that are know-how and trade secrets we don't have in there, and it's really the combination of these things. You can't patent nature, right? So we have a lot of natural products, but it's the know-how of how you put these things together. If we had time, I would go through the details and explain how these things are really different. But what's really important more than anything is developing your brand, okay, with consumer products. Look at Cetaphil. It's a 30-year-old product. There's no patents there anymore. It grows $200 million a year. Okay, it's got on the shelf products that are, the knockoffs by the stores and so forth. So that's the important thing, is really building the brands with consumer products. But we do have patents, that are helpful and so forth. So that answers one of the questions, but.
Yeah, well, and I keep jumping around. It's okay. Do you have like wearables? Are bandages becoming stuff that will, they're very tiny single serving sauce packaging for multiple use? Person buys 30 in a like Band-Aids, right? But they're tiny because they're medicine. Does that ever work? the way you can package it and have like a really, really long shelf life and outcompete your competitors that way?
Yeah, so you're saying having different packaging alternatives. Yeah, I love different packaging. And I think that's, one of the selling points you can have, right? How do you deliver it? So I think those are good line extensions that we can have that will build things that meet the patient's needs.
Hey, the final comment. Oh,
We have a question from the audience. Are there any side effects?
Yeah, so these are topical products, right? So you don't have the systemic side effects. We've done irritation sensitization studies, the traditional ones, so I came from a dermatology company, pharma company. So I follow all the same rules with the company. I mean, that's just my genetics, what I grew up with. And so we did irritation sensitization studies, and we found it to be, virtually, just safe without irritation and sensitization. But that's the worst thing you could probably have is someone have an irritation, right? You stop it or reduce the how often you apply it and it goes away. Or if someone has an allergy, you never know, someone can have an allergy to one of the ingredients and they might have irritation. They'll stop and use it in a couple of days of steroids, topical steroids, and that's the worst types of side effects that you would have.
And next question is why OTC versus FDA route?
I'm 65 years old, and I've developed quite a few prescription drugs, and I can tell you they take over 10 years, lots more millions of dollars, and this way I could develop products. I have that skill, okay, because I understand the inflammatory pathways and the diseases and how to treat. That's why we get such good results. But I can launch them in a year and get them on the market and make a nice business for me and my shareholders. So that's why we did it.
Great. Dan, you have one final question and then we need to move to the next one. What's your last question, Dan?
Well, Arthur, you're going to need to be prepared for the big elephant in the room here. When the tide is out, and so it's going to be hard to be raising anything. I think you have a very compelling pitch, Dick, that you're worth backing as an angel investor, given all the multiple opportunities. What I would like to see is that you've hired you're a scientist, you're a very nice person. We kind of with a medical device company, we need an SOB to be the CEO to get an ROI. And so I don't want to change you. You're probably perfect, but I want you to keep your eyes out for a $500,000 angel check writer who wants to come in and start becoming the new CEO.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're always open. I mean, our goal is to make the company grow. And if I'm not the right person for the position or a better person, I think that's great, right? But however, I have a lot of experience, 30 years, 40 years experience in pharma in all different areas, not just as a scientist, right? So, I've bought and sold, $400, $500 million companies. And
all right,
so
bring that up earlier, because you made yourself a scientist, and then you
no. So I'm a business guy. 90% of my experience is I'm very smart with developing products and understanding pathways, but I have all the biz background. But I don't know everything, and so using consultants, advisors. If someone is better for the position in the long run, that's good for the company. I think it's good.
It turns out you might be perfect, but it didn't occur to me that you are. And every time I peel back a layer, I'm saying, oh, he's better and better and better. So I would think you just need to revise your pitch deck and cover some of these points so that you're just better out there on the circuit.
That's great.
I think it's a good idea. I'd love to do that. Thank you for your feedback and questions.
Thanks, Art. Thanks for your presentation.
Thank you.
With that, we'll go and bring our next presenter up, Sean Morris of Amplify Vascular. Hey, Sean, thanks for joining us today. If you'd like to go ahead and load up your slides, we'll have you kick off next.
You bet. I appreciate it. So, assume everybody can hear me. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. My name is Sean Morris. I'm the CEO, president, board member of Amplify Vascular. Just a little bit about myself. I've been in medical devices for 25 years, 10 years at a publicly traded company called Angiodynamics. My last role there was in upstate New York, was the president of the peripheral vascular division. I had full P&L responsibility, about $150 million division. My life has been in vascular medicine, and I became very interested in with it in terms of image guided therapeutic delivery. I didn't know at the time that I would be an entrepreneur, but looking back now, I know that I love working with physicians and creating new devices. That led me to starting a company in St. Louis called Venity, which is a venture-backed company, building a venous stent, which we sold to Boston Scientific in 2018 for a couple $100 million. So I got my face kicked in and learned the hard way about how to start a company, raise money, manage a board, take a class 3 PMA product through the regulatory gauntlet. Just grew in a large appreciation for that. Was blessed with a nice exit, and gave me some wind in my sails to go after some other really interesting opportunities. After that, I started running another company in the stroke space and got that to an IDE approval, handed off to a new team. Been on a couple of boards, and I became the Amplify CEO officially in November of 2022. So since then, I've been working really hard to get the company organized and focused and running down the track. Okay, so just a couple highlights. I think it's good with limited time. So we do have first in human data on this project. We're early, so we're clinical, but we're preclinical relative to an FDA IDE study. Very, very large market. We're very communicative with FDA. We feel like we've got a good opportunity there, and it's a growing market as well. It's addressing a significant unmet need in hemodialysis vascular access, which I'll jump into. We have, I mentioned, really good clinical data that gives us a lot of wind in our sails to move forward. We understand our regulatory path. It's a de novo 510(k). It's lower risk, but there's no predicate for it. We expect to get ID approval this quarter or Q4 in 2023. Really, really good team. Lots of history with class 3 medical devices, mainly in the left ventricular assist or a fully implantable heart pump technology, which is relevant to our technology. We have really, really good IP, FTO, freedom to operate. I've already been engaging with strategics, which I think is important. It's worked for me in the past. And we're raising a $7 million Series A preferred round, of which we've already brought in $5.5 million. So I'm looking to close the gap of $1.5 million to get to our objectives. So a little bit about kidney failure and hemodialysis. 1% of the population it represents, but it eats up 10% of the budget. So it's a big deal. There's a lot of motivation. There's a lot of companies that are focusing on this, which is great for us because Medtronic and Terumo and some of those very large companies wouldn't be spending a lot of time and really looking at this space if they didn't find it to be an attractive market that's in a growing space. $36 billion on end-stage renal disease, 4.9 million patients on dialysis by 2025, $120 billion market. In the area that we're focused on is really the lifeline area. This is when a patient needs to get access to their blood to get it clean, to bring it back in, or a process called hemodialysis. There's 3 million patients worldwide. It's a $3 billion opportunity just in this little sliver of it in the US. And again, it's growing. From the NIH's definition, I won't get into it, but it's basically kidneys don't work, blood needs to be cleaned. We do it in an extracorporeal way. It goes into a machine, it filters it, you add some things to it, you eliminate the water waste, because these patients are not creating urine, so they've lost their kidney function. Getting their blood clean means they stay alive. If they don't, they don't. The famous forms of access are to use a synthetic graft material, which don't work very well and they break down quickly. A tunnel dialysis catheter or a temporary catheter, which communicates to the blood pool, pulls the blood out, cleans it, pushes it back in. They're highly prone to infection. They have all kinds of problems. I've helped develop dialysis catheters, so it's a really nice market, but they're very limited. The ideal form of access is through something called an AV fistula, using your native vein, and that's healable, puncturable, longer lasting. The issue is that it's a surgical procedure and they don't mature very well at all. So it takes 6 to 12 weeks for them to mature, and even in the forearm where the leadership in kidney dialysis wants the AV fistula to be created, even higher failure rates. This is what we're going to address. Now, interestingly, if you look at the starting vein diameter, it's a predictor for how well this access site is going to work. Unfortunately, most people, elderly, Asian, they have vascular disease. These vessels are already very small and they're already compromised. So, and of course, the further you go down in a limb, the smaller they get. Therefore, they're very, very hard to make really, really good access sites. So if we can solve for that problem, we can make a larger access site to begin with, then we can turn hemodialysis on its head. And that's what we intend to do. Over here is KDOQI guidelines, mainly looking at if you can get a vein diameter to 6 millimeters and flowing at 600 milliliters or more, it usually leads to a good dialysis outcome. If you don't clean the blood well, the patients don't do well, they get sick, they're lethargic, other things occur. From the NIH, they did a great study that looked at on the x-axis, the starting vein diameter is a predictor for outcomes. The smaller the vessel, the worse the outcomes. The larger the vessel, the better the outcomes. We're essentially a technology that's taking small veins, making them large, and making them amenable to good dialysis access sites and outcomes. AVS have been around for almost 60 years, and with all the science and all the history, it's still 80% of them fail, especially in the forum specifically. Why? The biggest driver to success is starting vein diameter, which we've already touched on. We'll address this issue and will be the most important advancement in the treatment of dialysis. How are we going to do it? Our novel technology utilizes known physiological conditions to rapidly increase the diameter of vein. It'll be used for dialysis access. We do this through a very simple blood pump technology. We can actually mature that from weeks to days and make it more predictable. This will lead to more candidacy to grow the market, more successes, a longer life. It'll grow the entire industry because these patients will stay alive longer, which impacts the economics and impacts all the other companies that are interested in the space, reduce costs, and make for a happier patient. How it works, a little cartoon pictorial here. You start with a small vein, you put a little blood pump in, you pull blood from the venous circulation, you rotate it down into a pump, and then you forcefully inject it into a forearm vein. Over time, again, with known physiological applications, we can make that vein larger. The doctor immediately creates this AV fistula communication, and then it can be usable for dialysis access. If we can do this successfully and increase 30–40%, which we believe we can, and we can make that access site usable in a couple of weeks versus 6 to 12 weeks, if at all, we have a huge winner. We have first in human data. This is one of my favorite guys is here in St. Louis with me at Washington University, St. Louis, Dr. Surinder Shenoy, global KOL, participated in the study where we investigated 10 patients. You can see here on blood flow, we went from 279, we treated at the end, we're well over the KDOQI guidelines. After AV fistula, we kept that here. In terms of the vein diameter, same story. Started low, went high, stayed high after AV fistula. Here's a venogram of the starting vein diameter and after amplified treatment. This is just injection of dye into an angiogram and showing an enlarged vein. You can look at a histogram of our patients. Here at 12 hours, you can see that we've already dilated veins from about 2 millimeters to almost 5 millimeters in less than a day. At a day, certainly at a day and a half. This is pretty incredible. This uses, again, known physiological applications, wall shear stress over time. There's really, really good data there. These are all the players that are in it. You can look at these names and you know that they're big. I've already met with these guys, these guys, these guys. This is a new entity created by Medtronic and DaVita in a joint venture. Merit Medical has jumped in. Some really, really good energy there. And I've had a lot of experience with these companies, so I know a lot of the biz dev folks there. The current standard of care gives you less patients, more failures, more cost. Amplify will give you more patients, less failures, and less cost and more predictability. From a timeline perspective, this is the use of funds here in this red box. We're raising $7 million. This is going to get us again through IDE approval, our first 20 patients, which is really a safety cohort, looking at inpatient applications here, and give us the runway to go through a breakthrough designation to meet with FDA. Our next round will be $18 million. That'll get us all the way through the IDE study. It'll provide more economic data in support of reimbursement. And I feel conservative exit values here at 300 to 500. If we do this, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to benefit. There's going to be a lot of cost taken out of the equation. I want to engage with strategics early. Again, that's what's worked for me. It doesn't mean it has to be that way. It just means that I've got some good synergy and some good inertia there already. I believe they could be a strategic investor in the next round. A little bit more here. We have a 26.4 pre-money, a 12% pool. We've already raised 5.5 on that pretty quickly. We're looking for 1.5. I want to extend to some smart people. That's why I'm talking to some folks on this phone to extend my network and my reach in preparation for the B round as well. I've already talked about the deliverables, and then the rest of the funds will be used for other endeavors. with that, I'll stop with questions and looking at my time here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Great presentation. Dan, what's your first question?
So, Sean, great work. Flip it back one slide. Okay, excellent. All right, so, okay, full disclosure, I'm actively investing in a company which uses visible light to clean catheters, and we're in the dialysis space also. So the good news that I just heard was that all your numbers resonate with me, and this raise also resonates with me because it's similar to the one that I'm working on.
Great.
And I've been through the due diligence. Like, now, have you been through a due diligence, like a heavy duty asset kicking, not just tire kicking polite stuff? I mean, I'm talking about running your assumptions by the people that buy.
Yes, I have in the past. For this, not so much.
Okay, and how you kind of went fast. Could you flip it back one more where you were raising the 7 million and you have that? Yeah, good. Okay, so are you saying that you have not raised any outside money yet? You're a virgin?
Well, so here's the deal. I pulled this technology out of another company, and I gave the existing investors of the previous company the first bite of the apple, which is where I got, I'd say 4.9 of the 5.5 from. I have one new investor that put in, well over $500,000. I've got, I have work streams, as you can imagine, for other funds that come in. But
so
our insiders have been
you should tell the story like that, because it makes you look like a really savvy, let's go to the guy who actually knows what's going on in this space. He can save this thing and make it run. I mean, that's actually your story. And I would say that, yeah, you turned this thing around, and that there was this prior building of the assets. And I think it's important to show that. And then, because then you surprise us with a 26.4 million. Is that post or pre?
Pre.
Okay, on the 7.
Yep.
And you look at. So, okay, the short answer is that you're going to need to put together your own term sheet and use that as a base by which to describe the future with all these wonderful big med tech investors. And then when Angel Land, right? When the company can show that the VCs are like, okay, that's our kind of, meat and potatoes, then the angels say, okay, phew, can he protect us? So I'm not sure about the pricing of this round and how it's all structured, but really, because it does take so long. I mean, even if you think it's going to be like Speedy Gonzalez right here by the Roadrunner thing, it's going to be longer and it's going to take a little bit more. I think a $25 million raise is excellent, and it looks quite reasonable. And I think you covered every single base. I'm just worried about what? I'm worried about how you're going to be able to prove the value to the bards of the world who are going to want to buy this fistula. And I guess the question is, and there's some trouble I had understanding exactly how you plug in and play this fistula event. Is it something you can? Okay, so here's the visual I had just said. I'll go fast.
Yeah.
So remember in the National Geographic, they show these girls in Africa where they have all these gold things, and they grow in their neck and they grow it right up like OMG. So you're kind of doing that, right? Is that what I'm getting?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the surgical creation of an AVF, it's happening anyways. It doesn't happen very consistently, not nearly consistently enough. But if you have pulsatile blood flow from an artery that goes into a vein, the vein responds and grows. That happens over 8 to 12 weeks, and again, high failure rate. We're doing the same thing, which is what I love about medical devices, is that we know the physiological circumstance of why something occurs, especially hemodynamics. We're taking a blood pump and we're making it non-pulsatile, higher aggressive flow rates, which then makes that vein distend and grow faster and more predictably than it would otherwise do in a surgical creation. What I like about Dr. Shenoy, which I kind of just glossed over, is that this is the only company that he's ever been involved in. He's pure as a driven snow when he goes to congresses and talks about all the clinical data and all the clinical science. And he's been doing this for 50 years. we'd be the first company that he'd be involved in financially, because this is the only company he's ever believed in that it'll work. So
Wow.
there's so much information to provide in such a short period of time on this pitch, but I'm in this to win it, because I can be selective on what I do. I think this is going to be a big deal.
Great,
Okay.
Sean.
Well,
Great presentation.
You got to get a video clip of him saying what you just said he's going to say.
Okay.
And that's a real asset. Yeah.
That is a good one.
We want horse's mouth.
Cool. Well, thanks, Sean. Appreciate the presentation. Up next is going to be Buddy
Thank you.
Lyons of Intech. Buddy, if you can come on up stage and launch your slides, that'd be great.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hi, I'm Buddy Lyons. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Intech Medical, and we are a digital health company that's transforming medicine from being reactive to being proactive by being able to predict adverse events. We've just launched our first product into the market in the first quarter of this year, which we'll talk a lot about. Our first thing that we're dealing with is a critical need for a solution in a condition called postoperative ileus that you probably never heard of. However, it occurs mostly in major abdominal surgery in up to 30% of those patients. It's acute paralysis of the GI tract that begins 2 to 10 days after surgery. It's the most common complication, and it's the most common reason patients are readmitted and have extended length of stay. The problem right now is that patients can't be identified as to who is going to develop a postoperative ileus. And current protocols are very reactive. They lack precision, which increases patient risk and increases cost. One example is just an intestinal surgery where you have a fixed Medicare payment of about $11,000 here. The traditional way of doing it is delayed oral refeeding, where you don't feed a patient for days so that you can determine that they don't have an ileus before you start doing that, and delayed discharge after the ileus is over. It's great that you've got a low readmission rate, but you've got a patient in the hospital for 8 to 12 days, which increases their risk of getting a hospital-acquired condition in about 80% of the cases, and you're losing over $11,000 per case. So it's poor patient care and poor economics. So early oral feeding and early discharge came along, and that maybe improved things a little bit on a length of stay basis. However, you get high patient post-discharge risk. These patients are released on about day 5, and an ileus can happen up to about day 10. And you're still losing $4,000 per case, and you've got a readmission rate that's over 20% in this patient population, which adds about $20,000 to the cost of care. None of this is working well. None of this is good for the patient, and none of this is good for the hospital economics. And we believe we have the answer, called PrevaCA, for precision post-op care. What PrevaCA does is identify at-risk patients and enables personalized post-op refeeding and discharge strategies. It's highly accurate. And it's designed to maximize sensitivity and negative predictive value, so you're very confident when it says the patient is going to develop an ileus and when it does not. Very simple to use. You just place it on the patient within an hour of surgery. It quantifies an acoustic biomarker that we call MH4, which is a lot of what our IP is a lot of our IP, our 3 patents are based around that are issued. And it predicts at post-op hour 12 that the patient's going to develop an ileus 2 to 7 days after surgery. So what are the benefits of this? Obviously, personalizing care. Now, low-risk patients can receive the benefits of early oral refeeding and faster recuperation times and early discharge. High-risk patients can be delayed in oral refeeding and not discharged until after the ileus occurs, which is safer for the patient. All of this reduces length of stay by 3 to 5 days, reduces readmissions from the current 20% down to less than 5%, increases patient safety, and turns losses into profits in this fixed payment system that we're currently in. So how do we show hospitals this? Well, on the right, you see a graphic that shows the average length of stay based on Medicare data and a case mix index, which is how difficult the cases are. In this particular hospital right here, they're a 4th quartile hospital with a length of stay of almost 10 days. By identifying patients at risk and personalizing care, we can reduce that length of stay by up to 4.4 days and readmissions by 43%, and give them a positive budget impact of almost $10 million in intestinal surgery only. When you broaden that out to major abdominal surgery, which has sort of the same post-op ileus rates, that $10 million would be more like $50 million in positive budget impact. What we really believe is going to drive the intermediate adoption of PrevaCA is ambulatory surgery. This has been tried for a long time. This is surgery with a 1-day length of stay, what now takes a 5 to 12-day length of stay. So the problem is that nobody's until now has been able to determine who's going to get a postoperative ileus, and that's hindered adoption. We're the only game in town that can determine this with a 95 negative predictive value. What that means is that if the device says that the patient's not going to develop an ileus, it's correct 95% of the time, which makes it indispensable for discharge. So we believe that up to 50% of these cases can be done with 1-day stay and saving well over $10,000. To drive that, we've got an ambulatory collaborative that we're launching in the fourth quarter all throughout the country. We already have 6 centers who are very interested in doing this, and we believe it's going to really drive growth of Prevacea over the intermediate term. So overall, the postoperative ileus market worldwide is about $6.5 billion. The US and the EU have comparably sized markets of about $1.5 billion. Those are the 2 markets that we're primarily interested in currently, but we'll be having discussions with others in Asia in 2024, where the markets are about $3.5 billion. Revenue model is a single-use device. We currently have 20 contract sales people out there and 1099 reps. They directly engage surgeons and identify surgeon champions who present it to value committees. One of the benefits of the ambulatory collaborative is sometimes we can sidestep a value committee because it's being used in a quality improvement program. The cost of the device is $600 if they join our Previs Green program, which is where we get used devices back because we can reuse components to drop our cost of goods by 58%. And at scale, it's about over an 80% gross margin. So what are we doing to drive adoption over 2023 and 2024? We're expanding our rep base from 21 to 32 opportunistically. We've got the major abdominal claim, which gives us a 5-fold increase in market size to $1.5 billion in the US. We've got a post-market trial going on right now at these centers that you see on your screen. We'll finish that in the fourth quarter, and all of these centers want to use this. So that's 9 customers right there, which represents over $50 million in revenue potential in ambulatory surgery. Driving that collaborative forward to get it, and then we're guaranteed the device. If the device is wrong, we'll give it to you. It's so accurate. This led us to the development of Prevacea, which is an acoustic IoT wearable platform. We've already developing the first product off of that. It is a 2nd-generation device that actually predicts postoperative ileus. Why are we doing this? Because it's more accurate, it's continually improved performance with machine learning, and it's half the cost to produce than a Prevacea device. Not only that, longer term, we have the opportunity to use this in outpatient wearables to predict things like bronchospasm and asthma or decompensation in CHF. And we're going to have data on that as well in the second half of this year. So our capital needs, we're highly capital efficient. We got Prevacea to market with less than $3.75 billion. We've raised $6.1 million in the company's history. We've got a $1.5 million convertible note right now because we're going through milestones very quickly, and we want to capture those milestones in valuation. That convertible note would convert into a 2024 round if that round is necessary. We've already raised about $1 million of that. The milestones that you see in the blue are the ones that we're going to achieve. The ones in white have already been achieved. And so obviously getting hospital contract signings in the fourth quarter and a proof of concept in Prevacea heart and lung, completing the post-market trial and bringing those sites on as customers in 2023. And then 2024, driving the collaborative. And in early 2025, we'll be filing a 510K and a CE mark for that Prevacea gut, the 2nd-generation device. And we believe by 2025, we'll be having exit discussions with strategics who have shown a great deal of interest in the company. Well-rounded management team that takes care of all the elements that we need in order to make this successful. We obviously have AI device product development with Dr. John Cromwell, who's not only a surgeon, but an AI expert. I've been ahead of 3 predictive analytics AI technology companies. Andrew Forzik, our CFO, has been well experienced in 25 years in working with early stage companies. And we've got Gene Stefanetta in operations, who's experienced in manufacturing, product development, and QA/QC. Our board members, we have a couple of board members who have several exits to very large companies who are very involved in the company. And we've got a well-rounded sales management team as well, Kent Kraft has 40 years. He's running our contract sales organization, and Scott Nelson, who's been doing it for 20 years and is running our 1099 sales consultants. So that's the story of Intact Medical. I look forward to answering your questions.
We had a question from the chat box. Does this device predict ileus or provides early diagnosis of ileus?
It predicts gastrointestinal impairment, which 94% of gastrointestinal impairment cases are postoperative ileus cases. It is not early diagnosis. It is prediction. So by definition, an ileus doesn't occur until greater than 24 hours after surgery. The device makes the prediction at post-op hour 12, which gives the surgeon an time to augment feeding and discharge strategy. So it is definitely a prediction, not an early detection.
Great, thanks. And Dan, what is your question?
Wow. So, buddy, you win the award for 2023 for me to have accomplished the most with the least amount of capital. That is Mr. Efficiency right there.
Very proud of that. Thank you.
Yeah, you must be an SOB. And it's a high compliment actually when you're raising capital and doing what you're doing. So your deck got better and better because I finally, remembered the ileus, but it didn't come up till you talked about the market. It's a great graphic, and I think you should have the patient, the exploding diagram of the wearable IoT thing. Now, you need to get into this acoustic technology platform because I'm thinking out loud that there might be other applications. And if you're not talking about that, I think you either should show that the IP is blockable of others or enabling you in a meaningful way, because that we don't want to lose our lunch because you didn't fully cover all the bases. Like acoustics
we do have all that issued. We have 3 issued patents on the underlying technology for privacy data. Those are all issued patents. For the AI work that we're doing, we have already filed the foundational patent applications for that work, and that covers both gastrointestinal impairment, postoperative ileus, as well as heart and lung applications as well.
Okay, so right now the incumbent technology is, if you don't feel well in 24 hours, call us up. Is that the problem?
Well, not really. I mean, there is no incumbent technology, really, as you're saying, basically what you're saying. There is no way, and that's why they use these protocols that are so ineffective to try to deal with this problem. The traditional way is just a delayed oral refeeding, and you just hold these patients in the hospital until you get past the risk period. That's really unacceptable medicine this day and time when we have all these predictive capabilities. So
yeah.
we can optimize. We're optimizing length of stay for them by telling them if the patient's going to develop the ileus or not, right? Which optimizes their readmission rate. They're going to have some readmission because the device is perfect, but it's going to drop from 20-something% down to less than 5%. So the real thing is, you're right, Dan, there's nothing in here right now, and this optimizes the whole system for economics and better, more importantly, better patient safety.
So you can tie the IoT to the patient's wife phone number, roll him over, get him into the hospital, he's burning up or something.
There you go. That's exactly, well, in heart and lung, that's the kind of thing you want to do. You want to be able to predict that that decompensation is going to happen. That data goes straight to the doctor's office, and that doctor says, okay, you need to do this, or this, whatever his instructions are.
Well, that whole telemedicine play might be the trump card for your investment too.
Could be, absolutely.
I think you're a multi-application platform that knows how to phone home if there's a problem.
Right. Absolutely.
I'll yield to other questions. I just think, again, now, but let's talk more about the race, because I got all swooned up by the 3.7 to date. And then there's you got 2 caps going on. They're happening like right now. We just transitioned from the 3rd quarter to the 4th quarter in like a week or so. And then you're moving around the market cap of the company, valuation cap, I should say, of the company. Do you have any other sweeteners on this thing? Because we might need warrant coverage, or is there more money to raise? Because you're convertible noting this very cleverly, and there's got to be a price round at some point.
Well, there may be and there may not be. We're doing it this way in the two-note system that we're doing right now, because we're moving through milestones so rapidly, and we want to capture that value for our investors as we move forward. Now, the first note is the $1.5 million note. We've already raised $1 million on that. We've got $500,000 left. So that's going to go away very soon. And then following that will be the $3 million note that will take us through next year, because we'll be generating revenue as well. We may do a price round in late 2024, depending on a couple of variables. Number one is how well is Privacy doing in the market. If it generates enough revenue, we won't be doing a price round. Number two, once we get proof of concept data from heart and lung, where are we going with that program? It's a fairly expensive program. how much money we put into it, how much valuation we can get out of it. So there may or may not be that price round in late 2024, depending on what we do with that program and revenue generation from PrevaCA.
So this is an insurance play, ultimately. You're saving my patient from having a crisis. So it's an insurance. It's an insurance. It's an extra. I'm gonna low jack the phone to the little child and send him off, right? You can always call me. You're becoming the new standard of care
exactly.
for ileus. Now, are there other patients in hernia, colonoscopy? I mean, are there other
anything in major abdominal surgery is what our label says. So if you just take the abdomen, that could be intestinal surgery, liver surgery, pancreas surgery, gynecology, urology, cystectomies. Men who have cystectomies because of bladder cancer have a 30% postoperative ileus rate. It's higher than an intestinal surgery. So there are literally hundreds of surgeries involved here, and basically 4 tiers of surgeons: colorectal surgeons, general surgeons who do a myriad of these things, urologists who do cystectomy, and surgical gynecology are the big buckets of physicians that we go after for major abdominal surgery.
Well, I know some medical device angels, and I'll be happy to send you along with a smile that they should be taking a look. Are you on GUST? I think all the companies should be on GUST.
We need to update the GUST, but we are there.
You need to be updated. Don't go in there with your fly down.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Great. Thank you, buddy, for a great presentation. With that, we'll go ahead and move to our final presenter today, Cecile Vieni, High Prevention. Cecile, if you could step up to the stage and launch your slides.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Cecile Vieni. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Eye Prevention. We have established Eye Prevention in 2010 in order to develop the strut-plasty technology. This technology aims to reinforce the weakened bone, weakened by osteoporosis or cancer. And today we have one product available on the US market. The problem we want to solve with this product, with this first product, is vertebral fracture. Vertebral fractures can be due to osteoporosis for about 75% of the cases. That's what you can see on the right of the screen, or it can be due to cancer when there is bone metastasis for about 20% of the patient. And there is in the US a total of 750,000 vertebral fracture each year. And about 30% of that will be treated by a surgical treatment. And besides this treatment, there is still adjacent fractures. That means a fracture at the upper or lower level. And there is no product on the market today that is able to prevent this adjacent fracture. So that's exactly what we want to propose with our innovation. And of course, a patient having an adjacent fracture, meaning a new fracture, it will be affected in his quality of life, and also it will generate additional costs. So our solution is an implant that we call V-Strut transpedicular vertebral implant. It's an implant made of pig polymer, and the pig polymer is close to the normal bone. So therefore, we reinforce the weakened bone by osteoporosis and cancer thanks to an implant that is really anatomic to reinforce the vertebrae. And this implant is combined with a bone cement in order to fix the fracture in the vertebral body. So we have a very unique approach, different than any other product, and that is able to treat the fracture and prevent the adjacent fracture. Regarding our competitors, so as I said earlier, there are many solutions on the market. The very old one is the vertebroplasty. It's still used because it's very, very cheap, but it's not very good in terms of adjacent fractures. There is still about 25% of adjacent fracture with this technique. It just consists in placing bone cement on the fracture site. There is also the kyphoplasty technique that combines a balloon that is inflated in the vertebral fracture with bone cement. It's still a product with a high rate of adjacent fracture. And more recently on the US market, there are implants combined with bone cement because that kyphoplasty by implant, like for example, what you have in on the slide, the Spanjack, introduced in the US in 2018. I developed this product before, but in Europe, but it was more for for traumatic fractures and for osteoporotic fracture or cancer fracture. So with this product, there is an improvement in adjacent fracture, but it's not as good as our V-Thread product, where we have a very low rate of adjacent fracture. We have a very easy to use technique for introduction, and we are better in terms of pricing than the competitors. Regarding the company structure and the team, so the company is French, was established in France, where we conduct research and development, quality, regulatory, and manufacturing. And when we get the 510K for this threat, excuse me, we have established a subsidiary in the US in order to manage the marketing, the sales, and the post-market clinical studies to support the product. So I'm the CEO of this company. As you understood, I had before an experience to develop the Spanjack at Vexim that has been acquired by Stryker. And before that, I was program manager at Stryker. In our team, we have a CFO, Laurence, a plant manager in France. And to develop the business, we have 4 business managers, one in Florida, one in Texas, one in California, and one here in New York with me. We have a medical advisory board. One doctor is from Mount Sinai in New York, and the other one is from Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, so a very famous doctor. And we also have a strategic committee. In terms of business model, so the product are manufactured in Europe, managed by France. Then the product is shipped to our warehouse in Arizona, here in the US. In order we deliver our product to our final users. So the final users, it's a hospital or a surgical center, and we try to balance these two targets depending on the reimbursement and the access to the hospital, to the facility. We do mainly direct sales with our 4 business development, and we have a pool of sales agents under contract that help us to support the sales of this product. Our roadmap, so as I said, in 2010, we had the 510K for our device V-Thread for the vertebrae. Then we had a reimbursement coding. We did an initial launch in 2022. We are now developing a new product for the US to prevent hip fracture. So this product was already used in Europe. We have more than 100 patients treated with this product, but we are going to apply for breakthrough designation at the FDA. And our next step for V-Thread will be to upgrade our product line with more sizes, new indication, and try to really answer the request from our user in the US. We really think that we will be successful because the doctors who are using our product are very happy in terms of clinical outcomes. The patients are really doing well after the treatment. The technique is straightforward, so they really understand our concept. It's really a good technology, well understood, and we have no competitors with something similar. We are also a very nice storytelling, saying that I developed the Spanjack and I developed this product. This is a new generation, and etc. And also, we are working on the biggest market, meaning osteoporotic fracture and cancer patients. So that's the biggest market in this area. In terms of achievements, so we are productive in terms of scientific publication to really support what we are developing. We have numerous patents, and we have more ideas and more patent underwriting. And very importantly, we are starting a business with very famous hospital, like, as I said, Mount Sinai, Johns Hopkins, but also Northwell System here in New York, Texas Health system in Texas. So we really have a very good start for our product, and we have a lot of clients. We have approval in progress in a famous hospital in other area, and we have much more leads that will become soon our clients. This is a very dynamic market because of the aging population, unfortunately. So in the US, in 2023, we estimate that the market is about $500 million to treat vertebral fracture. So it's called a percutaneous vertebral augmentation. So for the treatment, there is a very big market of about $500 million. Regarding our financing, so we plan to really have a ramp up that will depend on our sales resources. We have the interest, we need the resources, the human resources to sell products. And for the moment, we have a monthly cash burn at $125,000. So to go to this step, we have about a bit less than 10 million that have been invested in the company. It's mainly through business angels. We were 5 co-founders and we met business angel and friends. And more recently, we have one lead investor, Yellowstone. It's a family office based in Switzerland. And our need today, it's for the period of 2003-2005, it's to raise 10 more million by tranches. So the first one will be 2 million in order to reinforce the team and reach our sales figure. So we need to promote our product, train our users in order to generate the sales. As I said, we are going to enhance our product with new sizes and new indication. And we are also conducting a post-market survey when we plan to do up to 500 patients in order to continue our scientific approach and publication. We will have a second tranche in order to continue to enhance the V strut and also develop the Y strut. And the last tranche will be to really go internationally, because for the moment we are really focused on the US market. And the last step will be really to go internationally. And as exit, we plan for an acquisition within 3 to 4 years for about 200 million, and it's based on comparators. So like the Spanjack at Vexim that has been acquired for 185 million. At the time, they had the 510K and about 18 million in sales. Or you have Boston Scientific also that acquire the Vertiflex product for almost $500 million with no revenue and a 510K. So it's a market where acquisition are pretty high. Thank you.
Great presentation. Dan, what's your first question?
Well, wow, and congratulations on all those accomplishments. I have investments in 2 companies that are similar to this. One is a device that helps with pelvic organ prolapse. So it's like this really neat, elegant, boom, insertion, day surgery, right? So you have very similar. The other company is Carmel RX, which is a biomaterial, rich plasma material that is really good for bone filling and stuff. And they just got a huge acquisition. So you're in the right space. The capitalization is really smart. What was the post money on the 9.6?
You said the post money?
The after the 9.6 got invested, how big was the enterprise value then?
So today the 9 million was over the 10 years. It's not it's total investment. So our last post
non-dilutive?
No, only equity.
Okay, we'll cover that later. So look, you have a fabulous presentation here, but it was out of order, only in that it can be told a little more elegantly. You're the spine jack person. You start with that. I invented spine jack and we sold it to Stryker. Boom! Suddenly everybody that knows anything in this space is going to say, oh man, I'm going to listen to what she's talking about.
It's not exactly that.
Well, you know, I mean, I know it was a team and everything else, but take some credit where it's due here. So you can overcome the worry of the audience. Does this woman know what she's doing, right? So you boom, but that helps set the table. We know what we're doing. We know how these things get done. And then, you went into it was a long preamble until you got to that stuff. And I want you to think about getting right to it. Here's how it works. And you're going to show us how the CFO patients get treated. And then you're going to show your version, even as a little animation. It's going to be so brilliant and simple and elegant. And then it's going to work and it's going to be better, I think. So you have a lot of proof here to still do. But this idea of going in, so the 3 tranches, 2, 3, 5, smart. Everything here is smart. I just think that you can tell a quicker story. It's actually more exciting. My version is now in my head about, oh wow, this is the woman who did the spine check deal. So that's very valuable. You need to spend a little bit more time on the competition and show more respect with how CFO patients are being treated today, because they are worried to death that they won't continue to qualify for treatment. You don't have any shelf studies. Your chronology of so the competition, the product, how it works, the skin to skin in 25 minutes. These are all stuff that were like way in the back of the deck, and I would start there. It's easy, smart, simple, safe, probably less expensive, certainly ambulatory. Congratulations, you've got a great company here.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Dan, for those great comments. Thanks, Cicely, for the great presentation.
I think that concludes our main session today. So thank you, everybody, for joining, and we'll see you next time.